There's also a white version of this.
Hello, everybody. My name is William, and I'm here with the PBA, the Polkadot Blockchain Academy. Today, we have our first guest, and this is Bruno from r0gue. Bruno, let me hand it over to you to give us a quick intro on who you are.
Hi, everyone. Honored to be here today. So first of all, I'm a PBA alumni of Buenos Aires. So all my alumni, all my Buenos Aires friends, hello. And second of all, yeah, so William said, I'm a co-founder at r0gue. r0gue is a blockchain engineering company, and we're building like a main product called Pop. Pop is a Web3 platform specifically for Polkadot. So you can build decentralized solutions on our platform. Most of you will probably know Pop from like Pop CLI, right? We're building a CLI tool that we want to be a super competitive CLI tool to get people onboarded into Polkadot using Polkadot tech, whether it's smart contracts or Pop app chains, right? Polkadot app chains. We also have Pop Network, which is a freaking super cool Inc. smart contract parachain. And it's a lot more than that. We're building an API into it that will give developers access from the smart contract level to runtime level features, such as like all those beautiful frame palettes, and as well as cross-chain solutions. So that's a little bit about me. I hope to give a little bit more in this podcast.
Sounds good. And of course, I am also a PBA alumni. I'm from the Hong Kong class earlier this year. So yeah, I'd love to, I'd love to talk a little bit about, the journey after PBA, right? That's the point here. We want to talk to alumni who went through the program, who either were in Polkadot before or were inspired to join Polkadot, and talk about how they've taken their journey, how it's gone. So before we get a little bit more into that, I'd love to dive a little bit more into what Pop is itself. Um, so maybe we could take the two products, Pop Network and Pop CLI, and just go one level deeper for everybody, right? So maybe taking Pop Network first. I remember when you posted a treasury proposal earlier this year, and you kind of burst onto the scene. It was at Sub-Zero, I think, in March. I mean, I'm sure you got started before that. But yeah, can you tell us a little bit about the platform, the network itself, and when you say that it includes APIs to the frame palettes and lower level features, um, tell us what that allows somebody to do that they couldn't do today.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that this started for us was that we were coming up with an idea, right? We're a team, and we're like, okay, we want to build on Polkadot. What do we build? And I'm a big fan of like solving real world problems, right? So we saw that there was a gap in the Polkadot ecosystem for people who are coming from the outside ecosystem, who are already perhaps they've already deployed, like, let's say, smart contracts on other platforms like Ethereum, um, and they want to do the same on Polkadot. And there wasn't really an answer for that. There wasn't a platform to deploy smart contracts with DOT, right? The DOT token. And so it was like probably like the easiest idea to come up with, like, okay, hey, we need a smart contract parachain that you can use DOT, right? So that was like one angle that we came from, solving a real world problem. But then we started thinking also, like, in terms of lowering the barrier to entry. So the beginning of this year, there was a big discussion in Polkadot forum about developer experience and how Polkadot for newcomers seems like a cryptic black box, and that if you wanted to build anything on Polkadot, you had to build a parachain to access the really cool features. So we wanted to solve that, right? We wanted to make it lower the barrier to entry so that it's easier for developers to play with Polkadot. And so that's the other component of Pop Network, that if we could take all those cool features that occur in the runtime level, right? When you're creating a parachain runtime, you're constructing it with the different palettes, and you're picking, okay, I want the NFTs palette. Like there's a nice new NFTs palette that has really cool features, right? So you want to put that into your blockchain, into the runtime. But for a smart contract developer on Polkadot, that's really not accessible. So we wanted to make these features accessible, and that's what we're doing. Like, on a daily basis, we're iterating and we're picking. Right now, we're pretty much done with assets palette, and we're making abstractions on these runtime level features. So it's not going to be a one-to-one on palette assets. That would be like too much. We're making decisions and opinions and choices on what we want to expose from the assets palette that would be useful for building smart contracts, right? In terms of like fungibles, and then the other one that we're currently working on is non-fungibles. So, and the next thing in our roadmap is cross-chain. So think XCM, right? So same thing. We saw the complexity of XCM firsthand, and even like once you learn XCM and you've been using XCM, it's still quite a bit. It's still challenging, right? So we wanted to improve the developer experience on that. And that's one of the other features of the API, that we're going to abstract XCM a bit so that you don't need to be an XCM guru in order to build cross-chain solutions on Polkadot.
So just from the big picture, I guess you're comparing the difficulty of deploying a parachain, right? That's an L1 blockchain running on Polkadot, to just deploying a smart contract, but still having access to those features. Can you talk a little bit about, I guess, that difference, right? Like what kind of team or what kind of capability do you need to deploy a whole parachain versus just deploying, let's say, an application or a set of smart contracts on POP?
You come up with a good idea, you could deploy a smart contract. If it's small, you could do it in one day, right? Like a good idea with some good logic. So you could write your smart contract using Ink, and Ink is really easy to write smart contract logic. It does a lot of that scaffolding and a lot of the organization, where it's like, okay, this is where you write your storage. This is where you write your functions, your events, and your errors. There's already placeholders for that. So you can really have your business logic on that, in like, if it's a small, solution in a day, and deploy it on that same day for very little money, right? Just very little fee. Whereas if you want to test out a business logic on a parachain, first of all, you probably need a team for that. You probably need, not probably, you're going to need to have like, how do you say, DevOps knowledge, right? Because you got to run the collators, and it's going to be really costly. You got to purchase core time. You got to run your servers. You also have to be available 24/7 in case something happens. And if something happens, you have to be quick and you have to triage the issue, right? Whether it's a runtime upgrade or rebooting servers, whatever it may be. So depending on the solution that you're building, it may make sense to build a parachain, right? That investment may make sense. But if you can fit your business solution into smart contract, then start there. That's my recommendation.
So it's kind of like you are releasing this general purpose chain that, so you will handle the DevOps, you will handle keeping everything up and running. And then anybody who doesn't need the full chain, but just needs a little part of the solution, or a few smart contracts, or maybe a front end and some blockchain usage, they can just deploy directly on POP network.
Yeah, and we want it to be a relationship, right, between us and the smart contract developers. So if there is something like underlying on the blockchain that they need enabled or done, and there is a demand for that, like they're really going to build something real, let's talk about it. We have a POP Telegram channel, and we can enable things, right? Like, for example, XCM config things, different things that are needed for them to build their solutions. So it doesn't have to be like, just like, this is a platform, just build on it, right? There can be conversation there.
Definitely. And so the second product you mentioned, the POP CLI, that is actually targeted at parachain builders, right?
So we have two tracks. One of them is parachain builders, and I'm very excited about that. And yeah, I hope to do a Sub-Zero presentation on that as well, because we want to improve that track.
Well, stay tuned. Sub-Zero in November 9th, right? 9 to 11th.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Anything that you want to say about Pop CLI today?
I mean, this morning I was brainstorming in the shower about Pop CLI and the app chain track, right? There's this Inc. smart contract track, but there's also the app chain track,
Uh-huh.
right? Parachains. And I was thinking like, okay, what is the future of Pop CLI for parachains, right? Like, how do we make the best CLI for parachain development, right? What would that consist of? How, if you're a developer out there, like what would be really, really useful for you? Like, would you want to like pop CLI, pop, create new parachain, CD into the parachain, pop new palette, and then pop new config, add fungibles, pop, add runtime event, pop, add this, pop deploy, pop, what would that be? Would it be more like an IDE experience? So that these are the things that I'm thinking. So I would love feedback from the community as well, especially from PBA folks.
Sounds good. And I guess there's a third area that you guys are getting involved in because there was recently a Treasury proposal to help support Inc. going forward. Could you talk a little bit about that effort and the role that r0gue plays in it?
Yeah. So Inc. is an innovative smart contract language. The reason I say that is because I like to say that it's a decentralized smart contract programming language for Polkadot. Uh, Reason being that this proposal that you're mentioning, this alliance. So there's an alliance being created to steward Inc. forward, right? To be the decision makers for the Inc. smart contract programming language moving forward. So Inc. is the Polkadot. We like to say the Polkadot smart contract language, and I'm really bullish about this because this language, because with Inc. was built by Parity, right? And it's no longer in the hands of Parity. It's now like Inc. Alliance. Okay, so it'll be interesting what will come in the next couple years in terms of Inc. and how the community wants to shape Inc. moving forward, right? So yeah, that's the Inc. Alliance in a nutshell.
Sounds good. And so you've had a journey, I guess. Starting off at Parity, coming into the ecosystem. Can you talk a little bit about any challenges you had when getting up and running, right? Because we were all working together, right? And then you had to kind of jump into becoming entrepreneurs, and that means a lot of things, right? Setting up a company, finding funding, how to keep going. So, can you talk a little bit about any challenges you had getting started, and where did you find the energy? Where did you find the support? Uh, you know, to
Yeah,
kick it off.
absolutely. So let's start with like before Parity, I was in Web 2. I graduated with a computer science degree and I've been in Web 2 for over 10 years. And then I was at a point, this was like after the pandemic, I was teaching software development at a boot camp in New York. And the pandemic hit and we went remote. And the company that I was working for didn't have the resources to really excel in the remote environment. And so I started looking for my next steps in my career. And I was saying, okay, where do I want to go? And I was thinking, well, I want to go where I'm really passionate about tech. I've always been passionate about software engineering. So I want to go where it's like, where's the next Google going to be? Where's the next exciting technical thing going to happen? Right. I want to start there. So I was looking around, I was researching, and at that time I was really into Ethereum, and I believed in the idea of Ethereum. Like Ethereum sold me because I remember watching those, I think it was like DevCon videos. It was like the early DevCons where it was a YouTube video in somewhere in Germany, a room full of PhD folks, right? Vitalik and others discussing Ethereum. And I'm like, this really makes sense. Like there's something there. Like this really, really makes sense. And so then then I started looking into Polkadot and Gab's vision, and I was like, this is really cool. Like I really like this. but I had no Web3 experience, right? So I applied to Parity. I was like, oh, I don't know, why are they going to pick me? I have no Web3 experience. And I got an email, and they're like, okay, we're interested in you for a support engineering role. So I actually got a job as a support engineer at Parity, which happened to be the best job ever because my job was troubleshooting parachains, right? Troubleshooting Polkadot blockchains, right? And so because of that, I got really, really good at understanding how the Polkadot blockchain, Polkadot parachains, solo chains, how they work, right? And so that was an excellent entry level job into Web3, into Polkadot, to kind of figure out how everything works. Now, I will say it was really complicated, and I got to see other people along the path. The people that worked in Parity, they were lucky because they got to ask questions directly to the core engineers. One of the things that I helped start when I started at Parity was a Stack Exchange, right, where we asked technical questions. And that was an exciting moment because prior to that, all the questions, the technical questions were asked on Element Chat, and they would get lost in history. Like, oh, that's a really good question. And then, 2 days later, it's gone. It's gone in Element history, never to be seen again. So we're like, let's start the Substrate thing. And everything at Parity, like in the beginning when I started working there, it was like everything was like, I like to describe, this is my personal experience, right? It was amazing, right? Because like we would take an idea and we'd make it a reality. And it was the first company that I saw idea to reality happen so quickly. And I love that environment. I thrived in that environment. I love that. And luckily we can continue doing that in r0gue, right? Where we take these ideas and we hit the ground running. So branching from Parity to r0gue was not easy because I never had an idea of like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to build a startup. That was never part of my brain. So that was a challenge, right? How does a developer go to entrepreneur overnight? It just doesn't happen, right? It takes time. It took time for the team. But luckily what we're building is an engineering product that is developer focused. It's developer facing. So luckily the perfect entrepreneur for that are engineers, right? So we got a little bit lucky there. Every day is an exciting day in Polkadot, right? Every day there's something. That's one of the challenges, I'd say. Like if you're building a business, like how to stay mentally level with all these changes, right? And being sure that what you're building is the right thing to build, right? And that's where it's like I say, it's like solve a problem. If you're solving a real world problem, I think that gives you that how do you say, like that stability, right? That like at the end of the day, when you're in bed and you're thinking like, am I building the right thing? Like, are you solving a real problem? If you are, then that gives you some like how do you say it? Some calmness, right? You feel like, okay, this is real, right? Because sometimes, at least in the beginning, Polkadot seemed a little bit make believe, uh, but seeing actual real world applications, like even like the treasury, right, and these proposals, the proposals getting accepted, like to me, and the DAO, right, the DAO happening, like to me, that's evidence that like these things are happening and they're working, and we're still very, very early. Like a lot of the people in the outside ecosystem, in crypto and outside, I look at some of their products and things, I'm like, wow, what we're building in Polkadot, like with like the ability to build like these permissionless solutions, right? Like we really got to evangelize that more. We really got to show what's possible with that. The problem is that there's no real world use case. Like why would I want to build my entire tech stack permissionlessly when our users don't care? When our users are okay with 3/4 of our tech stack being on a centralized server with centralized logic, right? So if the users don't care, then why do we have to place the extra effort to build the entire thing permissionlessly? So I understand that, but there will come a day where that will be relevant.
Well, I mean, I have to ask now then, what is going to be the killer app that is permissionlessly built and deployed on Pop Network?
That's a great question. I don't think I can answer that question right now.
Or
What
better yet, how will you find it? right? Because it's probably going to be something that nobody expects, right? Usually, the idea is something. I mean, if it's a permissionlessly deployable network, then it's really about getting the ideas to come in, right? And then maybe nurturing some of them and letting something take off.
I think we will find it by doing our jobs right, like the rogue people by doing their jobs right. If we do our job right, if we build a platform that is an excellent platform to build permissionless applications on, then we will attract, the bees, right? So that's the best, in my opinion, that we can do is just like build like the best freaking platform that we can build for permissionless solutions, and also being available to our community. Like I from my career in Web 2, one of the things that I learned is like you want to keep yourself available. Uh, a lot of these crypto products out there, like you're kind of left on your own. Like there's no customer support, right? A lot of times there's even no technical support. Like you're really on your own. Like I don't like that. I think that we need to change that. We need to make ourselves available. We need to make ourselves accountable. And if we're building like a real product, that's an essential. So I think that matters.
Sounds good. Yes. How about the academy, right? So a number of your co-founders went to the academy, right? Can you talk a little bit about how that experience helped this project or helped your post-founding journey?
Yeah, the academy was like till this day, like it's vivid in my memory. I have a painting here of like what we did in the academy, graffitied, and
Well, you turned the camera there.
oh, I can bring it. Yeah, for those of you who have the video, this is right there, graffitied,
Oh,
graffitied art. We graffitied in Buenos Aires. I don't know if those other academies they graffitied or not, but yeah, like it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Even coming from Parity, like it was really intense, right? Like every day there was a homework, there was no weekends. If it wasn't for the other students in the classroom helping each other out, like it would have been way worse. But I think that because of that academy, like it inspired me. That academy gave me like connections. Like till this day, like just yesterday, I got a DM from someone's like, "Hey, remember me? I was in your class. What's going on?" Right? Um, and like if I look like the academy is a way to quickly get somebody from like very little knowledge of Polkadot to like pretty close to expert in Polkadot. I would say expert in Polkadot, right? Enough that like if they wanted to like pitch an idea, like I want to build XYZ, they could do that. So the academy wasn't perfect, at least when I did it, right? There were a lot of like gaps here and there, but that was expected. Um, yeah, if anything, it was just quickly get you up to speed and inspire you to go to the next level where it's like, okay, now I know. Now I want to build something.
sounds good. So, in terms of the future, right? In terms of maybe a little bit longer term out, I think you've described what you're building, right? There's the Pop network, there's the Pop CLI. You've described a little bit, maybe I would say your mission, right? Which is really how you build, right? It's not just releasing products, but it's making sure people feel supported, and anything that they need when they're deploying is something that you'll help with. But when you look out a little bit longer term, are there any, what is your vision there? Or are there any, future goals that you have or future directions that you aim towards?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for this pop platform, right? We want to see it being the Web3 platform of Polkadot to build permissionless solutions on, right? And so in order to do that, I always like to say we need feedback from the community, like what we're building, the new features that we're building. Is it useful? Does it make sense? What would be useful? So because we're a small team right now, right? So we have to pick our features correctly, and we have to build something that the community finds that they want to use, right? As far as like in terms of like the future, I think that nobody really knows like how Polkadot will be in like a couple years from now. So we have to keep ourselves open-minded, but we also have to make decisions. So I like to say like don't take the old Web 2 paradigm into things into Web 3, right? Web 3 is different from Web 2. So when you're building in Web 3, it's not like you're building a typical startup. Like it's like a startup but with paper thin walls. So like whatever you're building, because it's decentralized in nature, like you're going to be able to connect with other products, other startups, right? So there the barriers there, like we're all connecting with each other. We're all dependent on each other. Like what we're building in Pop CLI, it's dependent on a number of other products, number of other tools. So I think that for a bright future in Polkadot, we need to solve problems together versus like that's one of the strengths of Polkadot, that it's decentralized. Key components of it are decentralized, but it's also one of the weaknesses that it creates a lot of fragmentation. So how do we find that balance, right, where we can move forward in a strong way? I think it's by communicating and it's by solving problems together instead of like one person reinventing the wheel here, another person reinventing the same wheel here, and so on, right? Like if there's a way for us to work together and say, let's reinvent the wheel together, or let's not reinvent the wheel. The wheel already exists in Polkadot. Let's make that wheel better.
And so we're getting close to the end of our time here. You did provide a little bit of advice for how Polkadot, should build the future together. You talked a little bit about how, you are looking forward with Pop Network. Do you have any advice to developers that want to start their own project? Maybe new PBA graduates or, you know, maybe just anybody that has a similar background. How do you make the jump? How should you get started? Obviously, you should build on Pop, but beyond that, um, any advice?
Yeah, so try to find someone. I would say don't build by yourself. Like I think that building with someone else, holds you accountable, and it's more enjoyable. So try to find a partner, or maybe more than one. At r0gue, we're six co-founders. Some people are like, "Oh my God, six co-founders! How do you do that?" It's like, actually, I would say it's like it's the right recipe if you want to build like what we're building, especially for building like a parachain. So you need a lot of people cooking. So find somebody, find a co-founder, come up with an idea, and write a spec for it. Right, write what you want to build and submit it for funding, for proposal, let's say, and then build it. It doesn't have to be anything perfect, and don't try to like build something crazy, like huge, right? Start with a small MVP, a small iteration, something that's useful, right? That's useful, that you're solving for Polkadot or for the real world, and start with that. That doesn't have to be your holy grail, right? But that could be an item on your resume, right? I've completed this, right? It gives you credentials so that when you go back and you're like, okay, now that I have experience on that, I want to build something else in Polkadot. And here it is. Here's the proposal. Here's a spec. I think that one of the reasons why we succeeded so well with our proposal is that we spent a lot of time on it. We spent a lot of time specking out Pop Network, and writing that proposal, fine tuning it, iterating it, and it's available on the internet if you want to see it. And so really think it out, submit it, and you may be surprised, right? The community really is, from my perspective, they really are willing to fund projects that are really meaningful and doing something purposeful that's useful for Polkadot, right? So start there, and also you never know, right? It's not only blockchains that go through runtime upgrades. Like you as well, on your path as you're building something, right? You're showing that you can build that. You're showing that you're doing something useful. And today you might be building that small project. Tomorrow, you might be picked up by another group, right? So because as you build, you're also networking. You go to Sub-Zero, you attend these events, you start meeting people in the Polkadot community, and you start, how do you say, bumping into other shoulders. And before you know it, you start in this place and you end up here, right? So you never know where you're going to end up. But that's the beauty of like the Polkadot, right? Like I love the fact that we're building permissionless software, right? So like that's one thing that I said the other day. I'm like, I can't understand this like Web2, Web3 narrative thing. Like if you're passionate about software, right? Why wouldn't you want to build permissionless software, right? Software that can communicate with another piece of software permissionlessly. That's the purest form of software writing. So there shouldn't have to be anything to be sold to developers. Like if you're a true passionate software developer, right? Like I came in Web2, like I would follow like some prominent figures in software development, like Martin Fowler, that they would blog and they would write about like these software development ideas, agile methodology, about what was the other one? Like anarchy. There was forgot anarchy. What is it called? And something anarchy, which is like what Parity took that on. Parity was their culture was like software anarchy, where it's like you have an idea, you go, you do it, and then you come back the next day, and it's like here's the idea, and you kind of run with it. That works well, I think, in a small company up until like when you start growing, then you can't do anarchy anymore. But yeah, like start somewhere. Definitely start somewhere. Don't be shy, and you should get paid for it, right? You shouldn't do it for free. So there is funding there.
Sounds great. It's been great talking to you. I think you very much miss a lot of times I guess the human factors in building, right? In choosing what platform that you want to build on, choosing a blockchain, choosing to build on a blockchain or non-permissionless software. And so I think one of the key things from this conversation, and one of the things that I really admire about r0gue is the human side of what you do, how you interact with developers, how you bring ideas out into the world, and how you enable people to build. So thank you very much for the conversation today. Do you have any final remarks or announcements that you'd like to put out there?
I think from a PBA perspective, the next thing that we may be looking at is like dApp development, right? How do we, what's the holy grail of dApp development on Polkadot? So I look forward to seeing that. I still haven't found enough examples of like dApp development on Polkadot. So I hope to see somebody from the community showcase that. Like, here's an example of like you got crust storage, using parachain crust storage, deploying your front end to IPFS, using smart contract on POP network, and piecing that all together and showing that as an example. So I think as an ecosystem, we need to start looking in that direction. We need to start showcasing to the world, like to other ecosystems, like this is how you build a decentralized application on Polkadot. So for those of you who are on the call, who are PBA alumni or not, I'd love to see some showcases of that.
Sounds great. And I will just end myself with a final message from the PBA. So, interesting that you mentioned dApp development. Actually, that's a new focus for the next PBA class, which will be, sometime early next year. But before that, there is going to be the launch of what's known as PBAX, and that is the online program that's the precursor to the in-person class. And so look forward to that, I think, sometime in the next few months, maybe before the end of the year. And there should be an opportunity to sign up, to register, to start to take this online class. Just a little bit about the class. It's a non-developer specific online program. It's designed to guide the next generation innovators who are relatively new to the Web3 space. And it will teach the foundational concepts and primitives of blockchain and Polkadot, right? And so this is to take you from the beginning, from very little knowledge, and bring you in. And that's what I got out of the PBA. I think that's what you got out of the PBA. And so this is a very new thing, just being able to bring it out to more people in an online version. So take a look at that. The Twitter handle is x.com/Academy Polkadot. And otherwise, you can find the PBA on the polkadot.com website. In any case, thank you very much, Bruno. Just where do we find you on Twitter
You could find me
or
on,
on or Pop?
yeah, my username is Bruno P. Galveo, or you can find me on x.com/onpopio.
All right, thank you very much. Look
Thank
forward
you.
to seeing you at Sub-Zero in a month.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.